Hello my tarot friends. Today I decided to do a VR to Kelly from Truth in Story. It is a VR to one of her videos that she recorded a while back, and it is called 10 Pieces of My Soul. As I was watching her video, I realized that there are more than 10 pieces to my soul, so I added a few more soul pieces basically. I think altogether I have 19 of them, so I will take you through the decks that represent those pieces of my soul. And without further ado, let's just start. The first part of my soul is the studious part of my soul, and I have 3 decks to show you for that, and that is Tarot of the Spirit, my Thought deck, and Tabula Mundi. So let me just quickly show them to you. And why are these decks the Studious decks? Well, it's quite simple. It is because they have so much packed in them, from numerology to astronomy and astrology, deacons, the tree of life, and so on. So I feel all of these 3 decks are similarly complex, I'm gonna say. The Tarot of the Spirit focuses a little bit more just on the tree of life, although I'm not gonna lie, I still need to deep study all of these decks. Tabula Mundi is very structured, I'm gonna say. It's very simple to see connections between the cards and the deacons and the signs and the wheel of year connections, I'm gonna say. And I know it is based on thought. I feel in thought every single painting has so much detail that sometimes one can get lost in it. With Tabula Mundi it's quite obvious, and I feel it's more clean, I'm gonna say, when it comes to trying to recognize the symbols. And these 3 decks are just so flipping amazing, and they're the type of decks where I just want to sit down and study each of them for like weeks and weeks and weeks, but unfortunately I don't have that type of time. So I study them sometimes, I would have like an hour and I would go and study it a bit, but then I feel these are the types of decks that you need to really take your time with and sit. Yeah, these are definitely my studious decks, or the studious part of my soul. And aren't they just absolutely gorgeous as well? I love them. All of them. The colors pop so beautifully together. I am a person who loves learning new things. Every time I have some time, I would just sit down and try to learn more about the esoteric stuff in tarot. It just intrigues me. It makes me excited, and I get that lust for life when I study these things. So yeah, these are the decks that represent my studious part of my soul. The next piece of my soul is the part of my soul that is connected to plants and herbs. I have deep connection to them since I was a little girl. My mom and my granny always took me out in the meadows, in the forests, and showed me the herbs and the plants that are used for healing, that have specific healing abilities, are just generally good for our health. And I've always felt really connected to plants because of that, and the Herb Crafter's Tarot portrays that beautifully. I talk about this deck all the time, so I won't use too much time here, but this deck beautifully portrays how one can craft with the plants and with the herbs, and the deeper spiritual meanings behind the plants. And that's how I felt towards them my whole life. Like that each plant has its own energy and brings something special to the world. And it's also medicine hidden in the plain sight, I feel. A lot of people would rather turn to medication when the pure medication is maybe growing in their garden without them realizing, So yes, the Herb Crafter's Tarot represents that part of my soul. The next part of my soul is the hidden or the secrety part of my soul that I don't bear on my sleeve, I'm gonna say. And sometimes it's hidden even from me and I don't recognize it or see it. And I feel the deck that best portrays that is the Mariel Tarot, because when you use this deck, it really brings out things that you might not have even seen yourself, that you have buried deep down, that you were not aware of, that were maybe hidden in your subconscious or in your traumas. We all have traumas, they're different traumas, but I feel this deck really shines the light on it. And there are also topics that we are not, well, most of us are not prepared to just openly talk about. And I feel this deck really portrays that very well. So the secret dark parts of my soul, or the hidden, broken, hurt parts of my soul, I could even say. Sorry about it being all mixed up. I think I was riffle shuffling and I forgot to turn one pile around, so this happened. But yes, the Marielle Tarot. The next part of my soul is the part of my soul that is connected to the Fae world. Like I said, I spend a lot of my time in nature and in the forest, and I have always felt connection with the elementals, I'm gonna say. Tarot of the She is definitely a deck that expresses that beautifully. I feel a very special connection when using this deck. It's like I can feel the Fae and elementals around me, like I enter another dimension where I can feel and sense them and hear their messages talking through this deck. It is absolutely amazing. Yeah, the Fae don't mess around. They tell you things that you might don't want to see, things that you want to ignore, things that you would rather not talk about. And they're just amazing. So yes, Tarot of the She is flipping brilliant. One of my favorite decks of all time. Okay, the next part of my soul is the Dreamworld part of my soul, let's say. If you know me, you know that I'm a type of person who has always been very creative, and I've been writing stories, when I was a child, imagining worlds that didn't exist. I feel this deck beautifully expresses that part of my soul, that dreamy, dreamlike part of my soul that I often wonder, even now as an adult, because it makes me happy, because it makes me feel like everything is possible. It's just like a balm for the soul, I'm gonna say, when you journey into this dream world. And yeah, Shadowscapes is like a perfect deck for this. I know that these are also Fae, but just because the way they are drawn or painted, yeah, it's more like another dimension. This is the Czech version, by the way, that is a little bit more saturated and is on a more glossy cardstock. And as you can see, I cut all the borders and titles off, and it works brilliantly like this. It's amazing. You can see how certain colors and textures just come together so beautifully when you put them in a spread. The energy flows through them. It's very flowy, so I love that. And that's why it reminds me of the dream world as well, because all the energies and everything flow so beautifully around. Like there's no beginning and no end, and time doesn't exist. It's amazing. So yeah, this is the Shadowscapes. Okay, the next piece of my soul is the one that is connected to the divine. I have always been a very spiritual person. I've been meditating since I was 12 years old, thanks to my wonderful biology teacher who introduced me to meditation, and this deck represents that part of me beautifully. I feel it's a deck through which you can connect to the divine, and the messages speak to you without the words. They are translated within these paintings. You then translate messages from them to your human understanding, let's say. And yeah, it's just a very deep deck that you need to take time with. But divine or God, I feel, speaks through this deck beautifully. It's hard to put it in words because it is so godlike. I am so happy this deck came into my life because it really connects me on a very different level than any other deck that I have does. Shout out to Sadhana from Integrative Healing with Sadhana, because she is the one that did a deep dive with this deck, and because of that series I got interested in it and realized how absolutely incredible it is. So thank you, Sadhana, for that series. And let's move to the next part of my soul, which is the intuitive part of my soul. So some would probably argue that the part of my soul that is connected to the divine and the intuitive part of my soul are the same, but I don't see them that way. I connect the first one with the crown chakra and this one to the third eye chakra. I've always felt that I was quite an intuitive person. I always felt very connected, like I can see through people's energies, I'm gonna say, and animals' energies as well. This deck represents it beautifully. It is very intuitive. I feel just through the strokes and colors and facial expressions and themes and moods of the cards, you can gain the messages really easily. I love the Seven of Pentacles so much. It is absolutely amazing, this deck. And also the way that the guidebook is written is very different and I like it. I am here for it. It maybe adds another layer to your intuitive reading, you know? At least to me, anyway. Oh, look at this too. They go together so well, color-wise. Wow. Page of Air and Judgment. This one reminds me of the Soul Cards card. Yes, so absolutely gorgeous. I show this deck on my channel all the time, so let's continue. Next part of my soul is the poetic part of my soul. And that is beautifully expressed through the Japaritsa tarot. I have cut the edges of mine here as well. Yeah, I feel this art is poetry. Maybe that's contradictory, but that's how it makes me feel. I feel there's just something poetic in the way that the artist put paints on the canvas, the way she used strokes and also collage too. So she mixed different techniques and different media together. Yeah, it's just so vibrant, and I feel if you take one painting, I say one card, you could literally write a poem for every single one because they're so expressive and emotive. So I absolutely adore this deck. It is just so gorgeous and it speaks to my emotions. My soul sings through it. For those who don't know, I'm also a musician, so I write songs, I write lyrics and I write melodies with my guitar for them. I am not an amazing guitar player at all. It's more like a rhythmic guitar type of playing. So something that I could sing to, you know. But this deck kind of triggers that within me, that part of my soul. So yeah, this was the Japaritsa tarot. The next part of my soul is the spiritual part of my soul. Like I said before, I've always been very spiritual, meditating, connecting, studying chakra, studying yoga, yogic teachings, stuff like that, colors, everything that is related to spirituality. And this is the lovely Om tarot that expresses that part of my soul beautifully. It's just so lovely. I mean, the title says it all. It is lovely and beautiful and really expresses that part of my soul so well. The colors speak through this deck so beautifully. It is amazing, this deck. For anyone who is interested in spirituality that comes from southern eastern part of the world, this is the deck for you. If you're interested in Hinduism as well, chakra systems, yoga, this will be the deck for you. Next deck that we have represents the forest part of my soul. As you know, maybe, because I spoke about this in my other videos, I have spent a lot of my childhood and my young adulthood in the forest, riding horses, talking to animals, you know, communicating with the trees. And this deck represents that part of my soul so beautifully. It is just so enchanting. I feel like I step into my childhood forest every time I use this deck and connect to its magic. It's just so magical and wonderful and real. To me, it feels so real, even though it is a fantasy type of world, but to me, it just feels real. This is how I felt growing up. So this is the Forest of Enchantment tarot. The next deck that I want to show you represents the Pagany part of my soul, and I actually have two decks here. One is the Wildwood tarot and one is the Witch's Wisdom tarot. So yeah, these two decks connect me to, you know, that witchy Pagany part of my soul. They express it beautifully. They are, even though they're very different decks, they touch the same part of my soul, literally. Oh wow, look at these two together, that's amazing. They're both very earthy, but magical at the same time. Perhaps the Wildwood is a little bit more magical, and this one a little bit more earthy, but I would put them in the same category, nevertheless. Yeah, they're both decks that have their own system, which is also very interesting. Oh, look at these two together, so nice. And I adore both of them in a different way, but through the same part of my soul. And I started using the Witch's Wisdom tarot a bit more now because I realized that I can riffle shuffle it if I put it in two parts. That really, really helped, because I realized that the shuffling matters to me and how much I will use the deck. Oh, and I'm also gonna say here that perhaps the wildwood represents more the darker side of this category, and the witch's wisdom represent more perhaps the lighter part of this, which is also very interesting. It's like they're yin and yang in this category, if that makes sense at all. The next part is the fantasy part of my soul. Fantasy part of my soul is represented in Tarot of the Witch's Garden. Yeah, this one makes me feel like I step into a fantasy world. Even though it's a different world, it's still very relatable, and I feel like I am the part of it the second I step into it. I'm sorry about the cards that turned around. I was riffle shuffling it in a wrong way again. Tarot of the Witch's Garden is absolutely amazing. You can check out my review because I've done a full review on it, and it's one of my favorite decks. The next part of my soul is the justice part of my soul, and I'm gonna say that because I have a moon in Libra, I really want things to be fair in the world, to have a look on both sides and the reality of the world, and I feel that New Era Elements Tarot expresses this part beautifully. In the difficult, unfair situations, I always tried to approach things in a fair, balanced way, and I feel that this deck represents that because it shows all parts of humanity and not just the nice ones. It represents the dark side of humanity as well, and because of that I feel it shows that part of my soul in a very accurate way. I spoke about this deck in one of my previous videos, but it's just absolutely incredible. It is also thought-based, which I appreciate. It is very diverse, and it shows the real situation as it is, you know. It is very unfiltered, I'm gonna say. There's a huge part of my soul that is very unfiltered and very honest, and wants fairness in this world, and wants inclusivity of all kinds in this world. This is New Era Elements Tarot. The next part of my soul is the connection to Mother Earth part of my soul. You probably noticed that this is a big piece of me. And I have two decks here that I want to show you. One is the Wheel of Change Tarot, and one is Tarot of the Great Outdoors. Now these two decks really show that connection to Mother Earth, but also connection between all of us. And they're very different, but at the same time they carry the same part of my soul in them, I'm gonna say. I love them both so much. I feel like they ground me and make me feel like I am part of this world, and everyone and every animal and every atom in this world and in this universe, you know. This one specifically is even more focused on not just our world, but also our Mother Earth within the universe. And this one is a little bit more earthy. Nevertheless, they both show the same part of my soul, which is the connection to Mother Earth and to physical reality, let's say. Very interesting, these two together, I have to say. Next part of my soul is the social part of my soul. So a part of me that likes to connect with humans and with people and society and community. And I feel the Everyday Enchantment Tarot show this so beautifully. This deck is so amazing on so many levels. I talked about this deck quite often. It is expressive, it is diverse, it is inclusive in all possible ways. It's very honest. It is very easy to read, and I feel, yeah, it expresses that the part of my soul that is immersed within the community, within the social groups, very well. So this is the Everyday Enchantment Tarot. I love this devil. It is so real, isn't it? The next part of my soul is the animal-loving part of my soul. I have been connected to nature my whole life, and if you know me, you know that I love animals, like all the animals, but specifically I love cats because there's something mysterious about them. I feel like they are gods on this planet, I don't know. So this deck expresses that part of my soul so beautifully, the animal, specifically cats loving part of my soul. This is Tarot of Pagan Cats, and it's just so funny. and adorable and easy to read, and I feel it has a lot of hidden messages within symbology that unfortunately are not described in the little guidebook that you get with it. If you take your time and explore it yourself, I feel it offers so much depth that maybe it's not obvious when you firstly glance at it. Amazing deck. The next part of my soul is the unapologetic part of my soul. So my friends would probably describe me as a very direct person with no filter on. Yeah, just being unapologetically myself, expressing my emotions, my feelings, good and bad. And I feel Tarot of Tara shows that amazingly. As Frida Kahlo was unapologetically herself, very honest, with no filter, always said it as it was, as she felt. I feel she's the most expressive and honest, famous persona out there that also created art that expressed that. So obviously these are not paintings done by her, but inspired by her. This is also a thought-based deck, mostly. I mean, it's also Rider-Waite-Smith, but mostly, I'd say 80% of it is thought-based. It's, it's just, I love this deck so much. It is so cool and expressive, like honest, direct. It reminds me of my raw self, especially of myself when I was younger, when I was a teenager, when I didn't have any filter whatsoever. I mean, I struggle with this now as well. I just say it as it is, and I feel sometimes people might think I'm rude because I'm just a very honest person, but it's hard to help myself. I'm gonna say it's not that I can't help myself, but it's hard to. And yeah, this deck shows that part of my soul in the best possible way. So yeah, this is Tarot of Tara. The next part of my soul is the Hermit part of my soul. So even though people, well, at least I think my friends think that I'm quite extroverted person, which we could talk about because I feel I am an extroverted introvert. But when I feel introverted, like I want to explore the depths of myself, that I want to fold into myself and just spend some time with my thoughts and my feelings and really look at them and journey within, the Vision Quest Tarot is the one that really shines that hermit light onto my problems or onto things that I don't want to shine my light on, but also shows me a bigger picture of things, seeing things from a higher perspective, from a more wise perspective. Funny, the owl. And this deck is just so good. And it's mostly because of the little guidebook is written in such a way, I would say. Even though the art is intriguing and beautiful and can give you all those messages, but the way that the little guidebook is written is just on another level. And I really want to give you an example for it, although I read in one of the videos before, but I feel, I don't know, that the way this is written is, it really has that hermit type of quality. Let's look at 5 of Air, Fear. It is thought-based, so the messages might be a little bit different than in Rider-Waite-Smith, but fear, mental agitation, confusion, trepidation, self-doubt, relationship trouble, thoughts of abandonment. So you have inner message, which is this card reflects the fear of inadequacy and possible failure. At the same time, it reminds us to take a deeper than usual look at fear. The existential fear we all carry around with us in one form or another can only be discharged by seeing through it completely. If we direct our attention at fear without identifying with it, fear dissolves on its own. Become aware that you are not your fear. And then outward manifestation. This is a good time to make a far-reached internal changes. Turn around to look within. Realize that blindly rushing along will only lead to further conflicts and entanglements. Only by moving away from a challenging situation, inwardly as well as outwardly, can you get calm enough to see through it and thus get a much better handle on things. Do you see what I'm talking about? It's just so hermit-like, the messages. I love it so much. So this is the Vision Quest Tarot. Oh wow, Vision Quest, yeah. And last but not least part of my soul is the love part of my soul. Since I was in high school, I would say, I was always known as a person to whom people would come seeking love advice. Don't ask me why, but they always did. So maybe because I always loved love and relationships and psychology and stuff like that. So I feel this deck the Modern Love Tarot, expresses that part of my soul very well. It is all about relationships, any type of relationships. It doesn't need to be love. It can be family, friends, co-workers, you know. Yeah, it's just straight to the point. Like I am as well, you know. I'm very honest, and I feel this deck represents that. Both parts of my soul. The honest part and the love and relationships of any sort part of my soul. And yeah, it is one of the latest decks that I got, and I absolutely love it, and I use it for various type of readings, and it's just so accurate and beautiful and modern and inclusive, diverse, and everything that I like in a deck, really. And it expresses that loving the love, you know. So yes, this is the Modern Love Tarot. And I did a full review of this deck as well, so feel free to check it out, where I go in depth with every single card, and I interpret each card the way I see it and the way I read it, at least in this moment in time, because as tarot readers we always develop, and we hopefully grow and change and broaden our horizons and read cards in a different way, but in the moment this is how I read them. This was today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please write in the comments below what are the decks that represent the pieces of your soul. Do any of these decks resonate with you and your soul? Feel free to use the tag to create the VR to original video of Kelly, and I hope you have a lovely day, evening, night, morning, whatever the time is where you are right now, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.